So the White Sox have the 15th pick, and I've struggled in previous mocks trying to figure out two things. We talked about the first part right away, who I want the White Sox to take, and try to guess who the White Sox are actually going to take. In our last mock on SoxMachine.com 2 weeks ago, I had the White Sox taking Ole Miss shortstop Jacob Gonzalez because I
Wow.
thought he was the best player available on the board. Shocker, in your latest mock draft, you have Jacob Gonzalez going to the White Sox at pick 15. So what was your thinking, Jim, of assigning Gonzalez to the White Sox 15th overall?
Well, the White Sox pick is extremely difficult to project because one we talked about, you don't know who's going to get there. And there's all these rumors that they're like the Twins at 5. Like you would think that would be the easy pick.
Mm-hmm.
You got your 5 guys who are potential number 1 overall picks in any draft. You just take who's left. But there's also thought like, hey, the Twins are a heavy model team, and their model's going to want a college bat. So maybe if it's Max Clark or Walker Jenkins, they might take Jacob. I've heard Jacob Gonzalez as high as 5. Um, A's, who knows what they're doing, and then it gets murky. The Royals could cut a deal. The Royals could take, they've done that in the past. The Royals could just take the best guy on the board. Where are these pitchers going? So it's all extremely murky. But so that's one, and then two, like you hear differing reports. Like I hear the White Sox on a lot of high school bats, a lot of high school bats. When I get other teams who are like picking behind are like, I just don't see with the way the big league club's going right now, and you look at their farm system, how they could take a high school kid. They need to get guys who are going to move quicker and get some college guys to move. And again, you shouldn't draft because of demographic. But again, whoever they're looking at 15, it's not. I doubt there's going to be one guy who's head and shoulders above the rest. So if you have like a group of guys who are close, they very well might favor a college guy. So I'm torn on that. I've gone back and forth: high school, college, high school, whatever. I just thought of the guys I had on the board. I had high school hitters going 12, 13, 14. So that kind of thinned out the high school hitting group a little bit. I had Colin Houck, who's a Georgia shortstop, Arjun Namala, who's a Florida shortstop, and Aiden Miller, who's a Florida third baseman, going 12, 13, 14. And I think those guys would be in the White Sox mix if they got to 15. So they were off. So I had more college guys than high school guys I thought they'd be looking at. I had Blake Mitchell, who I actually projected going 8th. He's a high school catcher. And I actually think he's safer than your typical high school catcher because if he wasn't a catcher, he'd still be a potential first round pick. The bat's that good. He's not he's a catcher, but I don't know if he's going to hit type of guy, like a Jeff Mathis or Drew Romo or somebody like that. But I had him gone too. So the only high school guy I really had that was on the board for them was a kid named Walker Martin. And they would be kind of the ceiling for Walker Martin. He's this interesting Colorado, I think he plays quarterback. He's interesting. So I had all these high school guys. I had 4 high school guys going off the board before him. So I went Gonzalez, but I mean, I could have gone Jacob Wells in the Grand Canyon. I still wonder if Matt Shaw from Maryland and Tommy Troy, who are 2 more shortstops, feel like they're kind of moving up, and they might go ahead of Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
You got Nolan Shanuel, who had the best numbers of anybody in college baseball as a first baseman for Florida Atlantic. You have Enrique Bradfield, who's a speedy guy from Vanderbilt, whose stock's dipping a little bit. You have Yohandy Morales at Miami, who they loved in high school. You have Chase Davis at Arizona. Like, I know I just rattled off 9 college names. Brain Taylor from TCU, I could see being in their mix. I have him going 6, but if he doesn't go 6, he might get to 15. So I took Jacob Gonzalez, but honestly, I did that mock draft Thursday night. So as we record this, it's 2 days later. If I was doing another mock draft today, I might come to an entirely different conclusion. Because it's just, as you know, when you're doing a mock draft and you're trying to figure out the 15th pick, it's all dependent on who you have going ahead of him. But Jacob Gonzalez is really interesting. He's played well for 3 years at Ole Miss, won a College World Series championship last year. He was the collegiate national team starting shortstop for 2 years. But I feel like I think he's slipping a little bit in the draft. I think Sean Troy might be moving ahead of him and Taylor moving ahead of him because some guys get 30 run times on him. And some guys might be a little kinder and go 40 run times, but he's not that quick, athletic shortstop. A lot of guys don't think he's a shortstop. So then if he's a third baseman, there's more pressure on the bat. I will say in his defense, I mean, he came into the year, I think we had him ranked as the 5th best prospect in the draft. And I think he's been under the microscope a lot. And those guys tend to get nitpicked a lot when you've been a top guy for so long. But like there's some teams that struggle a little bit with good player, but how exactly is that profile going to look when he's in the big leagues?
We did get this question from one of our Patriot supporters, Doug Wirtz, and we talked about the Pirates trying to go underslot. And Doug was wondering, could the White Sox go underslot in the first round to increase their opportunity of maybe getting a better prospect in the second or third rounds?
I mean, they could. I don't think they will for a couple reasons. One, they don't have that large of a pool to begin with. So let's say like their slots about 4.5 million. Most of the guys they're going to get, they're going to be picking from this pool. I don't know. I know I've been very long-winded. I probably rattle off like 15 names of guys who could be in their mix, not counting the guys who will definitely be off the board. And yeah, well, some of those guys are going to fall to the late 20s, but they're going to be all in the mix for all these teams. So I don't think like anybody they're going to be looking at that you're going to be able to, like, maybe you could sign a guy for $4 million instead of 4.5. But and then they can go. They have like roughly an extra 450 because their pool's 9 million. Like that could push your number 2 pick up to like 2.5 million or so. But like I was talking about with the Pirates, there's all these teams that have these huge bonus pools ahead of them that I don't know who you're pushing down to 50. Anybody you're pushing down to 51 for say $2.5 million, or even let's say they go real discount for $3 million. There's going to be everybody in the back half of the first round has like essentially $3 million slot. The Astros have the last first rounder at 28, and that's 2.9. And then you have all these teams in the comp round that have a bunch of extra money and large pools and I just think it's good. I think the answer is no, because I think it'd be even harder for the White Sox to push a guy down. Like if I don't know who it would be, like some guy, like we'll just randomly choose Dylan Head, who's a Chicago area, high school product, fast player. Like, and I think he probably goes in the first round. But let's say for whatever reason, Dylan Head's gonna slide into the sandwich round, and he's looking at $2.5 million. And the White Sox sense this, and they're like, Dylan, we'll give you 3. Like, still doesn't mean somebody else might not take Dylan Head, and maybe they won't even match the 3 million, but they're like, Dylan, we'll give you 2.5. So you're really not going to school over $500,000 at that point? Probably not. So I just think I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I think it'd be very difficult for the White Sox to push a guy down to the second round.
Another Patreon question we got comes from Kennedy. If you had to choose which demographic or individual player can we as White Sox fans basically rule out as a potential first rounder for the White Sox? They just want to know who they could ignore this upcoming week with the draft reports and the player profiles. But is there anyone or any demographic that you can somewhat definitively say, I don't think the White Sox are to go in this direction at pick 15?
Yeah, I don't think they are ruling out any demographic, which is good. You should never do that. There aren't enough good players in drafts to say, oh, we're not going to take high school hitters. I don't think they're going to get a college pitcher because, like I said, I think the 3 guys who would be obvious picks for them are not going to get to 15, and I don't think they're going to take Walter. So I'd be shocked if they took a college pitcher. High school pitcher, I won't say no, but I think it's unlikely. I think the best high school pitcher is Noble Meyer. It's always hard projecting where high school pitchers are going to go. I think he's going to go ahead of him. They might be tempted by him if he got to him. The next best is Tommy White, who's a lefty. I don't think they've necessarily ruled him out, but I don't see it. So I think they're going to wind up with a position player more because that's just the way this draft is set up and the way the picks are going to unfold, as opposed to they want a hitter or they're anti-pitcher. I think they would love. I think if Rhett Lauder or Chase Doliner got to 15, which I don't think there's any way it happens, I think they would pick those guys in a second, but they're not, and I don't think they're going to take Walter at 15.